Well, happy Monday morning, everyone. Reid here with the Markcast. A couple of programming notes. I'll bring in Jason Hussey standing by. Trying to go live here, multiple platforms today. Normally, I try to protect the YouTube views, but we're trying this now. Direct to the Facebook page, direct on Twitter. So, if you're seeing this, maybe we'll get some more viewers. Maybe we won't. But like and subscribe if you make your way over to the YouTube channel. Also, next week we will be flipped. Jason and I will be doing the Tuesday recap show following the Monday night at BC at Toronto game, and then Pat and I will be on Monday doing the USFL recap game. So American holidays next week. I don't know how Canadians kind of handle the 4th of July, but I have no days off here, and we'll be doing that. But Jason and I will be Tuesday next week. Game of the week, we'll preview that with BC and all of that. But we'll bring in, raise your hand if you're 0-3 here and in week 3 of the CFL. Jason, this was a tremendous weekend. We don't have Evan here today. You and I think we can handle this. What did you make of the just kind of the games overall? And then I have lots of notes. I'm very excited.
Well, unfortunately, the first thing I wanted to bring up is just the amount of injuries we saw in that Calgary-Saskatchewan game. Both teams it seemed like every other play, somebody was going down. And it was unfortunate because that was an excellent game and the best game we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, this injury bug is not going well. Calgary, I have a couple tweets here. People out. We still don't know when Mazzoli is coming back. Kind of what's going on with that. We still don't have a timetable. The other interesting note I had kind of going into all of this. So we've talked the stats lines and all of that. I think I know that what we're talking about now. So at some point, I hope this CFL game gets finished here. If you're looking on the CFL Plus, Saskatchewan and Calgary still going in overtime here as we record this on Monday morning. I thought it was interesting enough that I don't know if he's a friend of the show yet. We're working on it. Justin Donk, and I guess they were talking to Randy, or he was doing a presser before the Winnipeg game. And I did love that friend of the show, Gary Stern, checked in here and said, because the quote is, "This is not a failure." Randy's trying to explain the statistical issue, and Gary said, "No, I love the CFL. It is a failure. No excuses." So we're still dealing with that. Any other thoughts on that? I just thought that was funny that Gary took the time to. He seems like he's vocal again now.
Yeah, I guess he's not restrained from not that he was ever restrained, but by like the being a CFL owner. But yeah, the statistical issue just has to be fixed as soon as possible. It's just inexcusable in my opinion. So yeah.
So where do you want to start here today? 4-game slate. Next week we'll be back to 3. 4 games here. Do you want to start at the beginning or the end?
I think we should start with the big statement win of the week, Thursday night.
I like that. So this was probably one of the greatest nights I've ever had watching the CFL here. It was close at the beginning. I had kind of my thoughts going. I'm like, I don't know, because Winnipeg or BC always looks good. Okay, we can beat the crap out of Calgary is kind of having the off year. We can beat Edmonton, but then you get your true test here, and this was, like you said, the statement. What were your early thoughts on this one?
Just that, the execution that BC showed was just remarkable. The lack of execution that the Bombers showed, it was just the fact that this game was such a blowout was just such a shock to me. It was in Winnipeg. The last team to beat Winnipeg on the road by more than 10 points was the Tiger Cats back in 2019, and that was quite the juggernaut of a regular season team. So, I mean, it just shows you how rare this is, and BC just has so many playmakers, man. They had so many guys out. Dominic Grimes out. Who else was out for them? But
Keon still hasn't played.
Keon Hatcher is not in the lineup still, but even beyond those guys, they have so many playmakers. Alexander Hollins looks excellent. Breakout receiver of the year in the CFL looks like. Lucky Whitehead had some good moments in this game. So that's really what stood out to me, just the amount of sheer playmaking ability and the execution from BC from a game planning standpoint. And they just really wanted this one.
I think if we're ever going to get Vernon set up for success, like this is it, right? You're playing, your defense is lights out. You don't have to worry about going out and scoring. I mean, we got 30 points here, but you don't have to do that. You can win with a 22 game against the Elks. Like, I just feel like he's someone that gets maybe a little flustered in that. Like, okay, I gotta go out and score. I gotta go out. Like, we can kick some field goals. We can do. This wasn't a problem here, running up and down the field. I loved Ryan Phillips, or DC, we're already seeing here. Mike Mitchell was talking in our chat. He's going to get hired for head coach. Did you know I filmed Ryan Phillips' wedding? Were you aware of that? Did you know the back lore of Ryan Phillips in the Markcast?
No, but that's awesome. I never heard of that.
Yeah, spent New Year's Eve with Ryan. I remember it because this was obviously this was like 6-7 years ago. This was pre anything with the CFL, and I remember they're like, oh, he was like this, because I was talking with like his groomsman, and because he had like this big like gold suit on and like spike shoes and just to the nines, coming down the aisle. And I remember talking with his groomsman, like, oh, he's like a huge star in the CFL. I was like, what? What is that? Like, cares about that? But yeah, then I remember it was the first season we're covering the games. I watched, I go, oh my God, that's Ryan Phillips. Like, I know him. So congrats to him. Certainly would probably see him on the short list here of CFL head coaches moving forward. Do you not think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of their coordinators, offense and defense, I think Jordan Maximic has a very good chance, especially with the offensive play calling around the league. But yeah, definitely Ryan Phillips has been incredibly impressive. 21 points allowed through 3 weeks. That really speaks for itself. And with 2 quality wins versus Calgary and Winnipeg too.
It's crazy, Mazzell still looking great. One of the leading rushers right now. I thought even Oliveira, there was all this going into the game. Oh, is he going to be what's going? Like, he seemed fine. I don't really know if that was kind of cloak and dagger here that we don't want play calling, but it seemed like it was fine. Did you notice anything from Oliveira?
No, I think Brady looked great, honestly. I think that he's really impressed me this year with how he's looked early on. Kind of a guy that I underrated coming into this year, but I think in terms of the injury and the health going into this game, he looked fine.
I thought it was funny too. Betts was getting, Calero sacked 7 times here. We had, and someone was saying that we needed to get a nickname for the Betts guy for Sad Claros. I said, oh, that's Mr. Claros. That's his father here. I think that he's taking care of him. Were you surprised? It just seemed like they couldn't protect. I never know what to attribute that. Was it, weak O-line, like we can't protect Claros, or just BC's defense is just playing on a different level right now?
I think, BC throws a lot of different looks at you, a lot of exotic blitz packages. They got great linebackers as well. But I think Betts has just taken a massive leap so far this season. I think he's honestly the leading candidate to be most outstanding Canadian very early in the season here.
Funny too, we had Derek Taylor, who was on the show last week watching. We had the Sean White dink field goal, because like at the beginning of the game, I'm like, God, points are really going to be a premium, but that's like I don't really know what's going on. He hit the field. This was the 18th time that Sean White has hit the upright or crossbar in his career, most in the CFL. Remarkable.
Yeah, he's had an incredible career, but that's an interesting stat for sure.
Let me get back over here. Otherwise, it didn't seem like, Claros 15 of 26 looked really pedestrian, had the one interception. Is this an off week for BC? Is this an ill prepared, or is this BC is really kind of on a different level?
I just think BC came in there with a different motivation and kind of surprised them. You got to remember that Winnipeg has beaten the crap out of BC over the last couple of years, even though BC's been a pretty good team over that time. And I think that, BC, it was just their turn to really return the favor and make a statement of their own.
It seemed like it really was kind of taking over everyone. We had Hodge here talking. That's the first time I've seen Winnipeg get outplayed at home like this in a long time. Too many penalties, too many defensive breakdowns, not enough protection. Kudos to BC. It did seem like you had a lot of, okay, I was sleeping on BC. I didn't really realize that. How have you felt with your kind of circle here with the CFL, kind of perceptions being changed over the weekend?
About BC or Winnipeg?
Yeah, just about, well, I guess both.
Okay, so I think Winnipeg, I think the biggest thing for me is that, we think of them as this great defense, but I think this defense looks very vulnerable early in the season. I don't know where they'd rank statistically, but I imagine that they rank towards the bottom of the league in terms of passing yards allowed. The secondary is getting chewed up through 3 weeks of the season. So I think that the perception of their defense being this juggernaut that it used to be, I think that it's from reality is a little bit different. And I think that for BC, I think that people didn't really give credit towards the potential that Vernon Adams had. I think that Vernon has such an incredibly high ceiling. It's all about him hitting that consistently. But I think that, people didn't really believe that he could do that on a consistent level. You'd think he'd have one stinker of a game by now, because that's kind of the trend of his career. But at this point of the season, so far so good.
Yeah, Zach pulled here. I had it marked around the 4-minute mark. Like, let's get him out of here. Let's go readdress. We had the Dane Evans sighting. We're Vernon's out of the game. Good seeing him on that. I thought McGinnis looked good again. It felt like kind of like a safety blanket for Vernon. We've seen that with the Dolphins with Tua, where it's like F it, Tyreek's down there somewhere, just kind of hucks the ball. I noticed that a little bit with Vernon, but obviously that guy's huge. That Justin McGinnis, I think he's like 6'4" or whatever, just a massive guy. It seems like he's really stepped up because we haven't had the full suite with Keon, and like you said at the top, Dominique kind of being off as well. So we still haven't seen, I guess, the full potential of what BC has.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Javon Catoy as well. They just have a really good combination of skill sets in that receiving core. Catoy is kind of like that tight end type body that is good for, check down routes. And I think that Hollins is an excellent route runner, a bit of a burner himself. Lucky Whitehead, obviously one of the fastest players in the league, if not the fastest player. So they just have so many playmakers, and it's made Vernon Adams' job a lot easier. I'll tell you that.
Do you like Vernon, the storyline here of him running the water out to the offensive lineman and in the breaks? I think that shows like Vernon kind of knows that I think Vernon's all in right now on all facets of this.
I think it's the perfect fit for his career. He's bounced around to many different spots. He was here in Hamilton when we had Johnny Manziel. He was there in Montreal, obviously, Saskatchewan even. So he's bounced around the league for a while. I believe he's been in the league since 2015. But this is the first time in his career that I believe he's truly felt comfortable. Obviously, he's a West Coast guy, so that's probably playing the factor for him. So I think doing little things like that, you could tell he's just really all in on this season, and the results are speaking for themselves.
Anytime I can throw a little shade at friend of me of the show, Daniel Austin, here, I have to do it. Danny says, I could not have been more off with my low preseason expectations of the Lions.
Yeah.
Receipts, I do like this. Like, I should just follow the CFL more. Hockey season take up more of your time. More people could care if the Lions had a good team. I don't know. I think it's good. I remember I was going back because it was this time last year, and I was kind of, something popped up in like my Facebook memories or whatever, like the episodes, and BC, they were coming off the big home win, and then they had the bye week, and then it was kind of screwy there. And obviously Nathan Work ended up kind of like taking over the world. But I feel like BC is carrying this momentum right now. And we have the big Monday night game with Toronto, the defending champions here. Could be, Mike Mitchell's called it, could be the Grey Cup preview. So it feels like they got a lot of momentum going their way right now, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so excited for that matchup next week to see this BC offense go against this Toronto defense, who I'm very highly on as well. And then the other side of the ball, I think Chad Kelly's really going to get his first big test in terms of great CFL defense he's going up against.
I had this too. I did all these saves. Where'd my thing go? Game stats that make them sad. But even like you look here, time of possession wasn't crazy different. I mean, obviously the sacks and takeaways, but Winnipeg held the ball a lot. It felt, like I said at the beginning, I'm kind of holding my breath because Oliveira is going through and getting 4 or 5 yards every time. I mean, it felt like, at least for the first few minutes, it felt a little closer than it ultimately ended up being.
Yeah, I think the sacks were just killer for Winnipeg in this game. I think like you said, I think they gave up 7 of them. I think anytime you do that, like, sacks are drive killers in the CFL. I mean, they can be in the NFL as well, but in the CFL in particular, 3-down league, sacks are killer, negative plays are killer. And I think that, one thing to note with Winnipeg is that they're very old in the trenches. So I think that is where you could see the biggest decline for them. And you saw their tackles get beat up in this game by guys like Matthew Betts. So something to note going forward for Winnipeg.
Moving on here, we'll wrap this game up here in a second. Moving on, are you higher on BC? Are you lower on Winnipeg? I don't think I've lived in the world where where Winnipeg wasn't ranked first in the West here, and I've seen a lot of power rankings, but BC obviously above them now. What do you just have the status quo kind of here of the CFL West?
I don't think I'm necessarily lower on Winnipeg. I think it's kind of good that they got that first loss out of the way early on this season, as opposed to going 10-0 last year. I think that took a lot out of them. So I think this is a good wake-up call for them. So I'm not necessarily super concerned with them, but I'm definitely higher on BC after seeing what they did to Winnipeg. Anytime you can go into a place that is as hard to win as Winnipeg, that's incredibly impressive. And they're definitely a top 2 team minimal in the West Division at this point going forward. And I had them third in my season predictions, but obviously Calgary's kind of going by the wayside here.
Yeah, we had a lot of sad Winnipeg fan crowd shots, kind of like a Ms. Girl back in the WWE, like a lot of crying fans. People leaving early, I didn't like that. I had a tweet saved where they're like, oh, if you're a Winnipeg fan after the last 3 years, that you should never walk out early on any of these games after how well your teams performed. Any thoughts on that? I mean, you were the Ticats game. Did you leave early?
I did, but mostly just because. Well, honestly, everybody in the stadium, that stadium was empty with 5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Like it was, but I mean, I think it's a little bit different of a situation. Obviously, that was like their first home loss in like forever for Winnipeg, or one of their rare home losses. Whereas Hamilton has just started so poorly to this season. We'll get to them the next game we'll talk about here.
A couple last things. Did you enjoy? And he was on the Sunday one too. Do you enjoy Paula Police on the roundtable here? Was it Naylor? I was like, who is that? Because I'm kind of like watching on my phone here, pulling up. I'm like, who the hell? I'm like, oh, that's Paula Police here. Oh, yeah, that's what he's doing now.
Yeah, I think he's actually the best one on there. Like, I think he provides the best insight personally, because obviously he's a guy that's coached in the league recently. He was on the TSN panel before, and then he went back into coaching offensive coordinator with Winnipeg, and then that's how he got the job with Ottawa. So, he does have experience in that TSN role, and I think it's valuable to have him on the panel.
Yeah, and then we had Kate with the hair. Kate wanted to be bald too. I don't know where they got a bald cap there, if that was a pre-planned gimmick, but it's always good to see Naylor on there. We have a couple of just comments here. We'll move on. Cole says, "Congrats to the Lions. Got my Warriors won in a crazy game." And then Sandusky said the question was it Nathan or was it BC's wide receiver core that made him that good? Makes Vernon and Adams better than they are. What do you make of that? Was it the receiving core? Or was it Nathan? I think it was probably a little bit of both.
I definitely think it's both. I think that I was super high on this BC wide receiver core when they had Mike Riley. So I think that they've always had very good receivers. Obviously, Brian Burnham there for a number of years, retiring this year. But, I mean, you just see how deep they are this year. And I think that, Vernon, they may not have as big of a ceiling with Vernon as they do with Nathan Rourke. And I think you've seen that. I don't think you're going to see those, 56-14 or whatever that first game last year with Edmonton. But I think that you just see this team is playing such great complementary football on both sides. And I think their defense is even better than this year. So honestly, I think it's a bit of both, like you said.
All right, let's get on here. The next game, you're a heartbreaker. You were here for this. I'll let you give the opening thoughts on the 38-12 Montreal against Hamilton.
All right, so I did an instant reactions video on this one on my channel. I think that, the main story is this one is that when you look at the yards, it looks pretty even for both teams. But the ultimate story is Montreal scored touchdowns. Hamilton scored field goals, especially in that first half. Hamilton was up 6-0 early, settled for 2 short field goals in the first quarter. If they had scored 1 touchdown there, I think it's a completely different game. They allow a punt return touchdown at the end of the first quarter. That was a killer, and Montreal just never relinquished the lead. So the execution was just so much better from the Alouettes in this game. I think that the coaching, Orlando Steinauer kind of got taken to school by Jason Moss, who is a very underrated offensive mind, I will say, in the CFL for all the flack that he does get. And I think Cody Fajardo played an extremely clean game once again. 0 turnovers in 2 games, I do believe. He has been sacked a bunch, but at the end of the day, he keeps moving the offense along and not turning the ball over, which is super important for this team going forward.
I don't know how, if you're Hamilton, if we have James Butler, who's one of the leading rushers in the league, and we have Schultz throwing for 47 and Butler carrying it 5 times here. I just think that's remarkable that you would do the work to bring in. And I mean, I don't know if these stats are, I mean, I watched the game, but I don't know if these stats are accurate out here. But that seems to me that I would be
Yeah.
utilizing that a little bit more on that. I'm so happy for Cody. I was going to tweet out, but it was like, I was so torn because we have and obviously the Ticats, and you're wanting that, and you're there. I love Cody. I'm so glad that he's kind of getting, I think, the proper, just being treated like a normal human being and not the scum of the earth because you're not undefeated in Saskatchewan. I think it's a better spot for him head wise. Standback looked really good as well. I think it felt like they used him a little bit more rushing, and then he had a couple receiving. They're kind of moving him around more on there, it seemed like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to get Standback going because he has not looked good, dating back to like when he came back from that injury last year. So it's good to finally get him going. That's one thing that's very different about Hamilton this year is their run defense. I believe it's last in the CFL. That was a hallmark of this defense for years. So that's one thing that's kind of raising alarm bells for me as a Tiger Cats fan.
They looked good early on. I mean, we had that first, it was that first drive, and Schultz had that bomb. I mean, we have our group chat, we changed the names of it as the winds blow here, but we had it Schultz season going into the game because we were all excited. Okay, Matthew Schultz is going to get this. Now we've renamed it to Cezanne to Cody Fajardo here in recognition of Cody's good work. But yeah, it seemed like you said, settling for these field goals really came back to bite them there, where they were moving the field early on. I mean, they were getting yardage. Hamilton was.
Yeah, absolutely. They were moving the ball between the 20s, just could not punch it in. I thought, Duke Williams, Tim White, both had excellent games in this one, but at the end of the day, they missed some open receivers in the end zone, really cost them the game, honestly. So I think that, it's just such a disappointing start for the Tiger Cats this season, and I'm having trouble deciding what they should do going forward. I think it honestly could be a coaching thing. I think that, at a certain point, a lot of coaches in professional sports just get figured out. They have success early on. Orlando Steinauer, great first year with Hamilton, but I think that they're starting to be figured out on both sides of the ball. The tricks that they used to use just are not working anymore. And, like I said, I think they're just getting figured out. So I think it might just be a coaching thing.
I had my save thing here. I can't find it, but there's like the meme where it's a security guard like not patting down anyone as they walk into the stadium. That felt like the Ticats as well. Like the Ticats could not tackle at all, could not pull anybody down at all. This is kind of stuff where, like, I don't know if that's a coachable thing or if that's a player thing, but like let's go here. I mean, these are things that are only making your matters worse.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The execution in terms of the tackling just terrible. Like I said, that run defense is not looking good so far this season. I think a lot of that has to do with discipline and tackling, obviously. So honestly, at the end of the day, I'm just very disappointed with the way this season has started for the Tiger Cats. And like I said, I don't know what they should do going forward.
Yeah, because that's the thing. So, Bo's out now. He's on the 6th game. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to miss 6 games. I don't know if he comes back. Yeah, how do you I don't know how you reboot this year. I mean, this was supposed to be we talked about this in our pre-kickoff everything. I mean, this is Grey Cup or bust. They're hosting this year. They're paying, Bo $500,000. Like, just a weird calculated error here to think that you had enough other pieces. I don't know. I mean, looking back now, do you think that they should have seen this coming, or do we see this coming? Like, how do you view this now looking back?
I think there was always a risk. You should have always known there was a risk that Bo Levi Mitchell was not going to, get back to or even close to that level that we saw back in 2018 when he was MOP of the CFL. Because we haven't seen anything in recent memory to tell us anything differently. So, I mean, I always had that in my back of my mind, but I thought that maybe, Matthew Schultz could step in if Bo falters. I still think he could. I think he put up really good yardage in this game. It's all about finishing drives, but I worry about the time it takes to do that. I'm just more frustrated with how slow this team starts. I bet this team's still going to finish with 7 or 8 wins because this team is always a second half of the season type of team, but they dig themselves holes year after year, and it's just incredibly frustrating. It's like the first month of the year is like a preseason.
It was funny. We had, I believe, Cliffy was there with Montreal Alouettes Flight Deck podcast. He was at the stadium. I heard some air horns going, some of the Montreal. Tim Capper was in Hawaii, so I knew it wasn't him. I was thinking, I wanted to figure out some way that we can get the Tie Cats are humming song, but just with the air horns playing. If there's a way that we could get that cover of that, because I do love that song, but I loved hearing and especially where it's in Hamilton. So, you have like just 2 or 3 guys in the stand. I'm like, that's ballsy. You're ballsy. You're going to get your ass beat. You're trying to do that in the Hammer.
Yeah, maybe we could work something out for the Grey Cup if Montreal makes it there.
Yeah, and then I had a couple of their notes here. Who is it? Austin Mack looked really good. I mean, it just seems like Cody's got a lot of tools there. Julian Grant looking good as well. It's like he's a new man. It's like Cody Fajardo getting his screw back. I want to talk the shove here at the end. The shove felt around the world. What did you make of that? Because I'm going to pull up the tweet.
Absolutely inexcusable in any professional sport, even any amateur sport, to do that to an opponent. You got to have some level of respect, play between the lines, whistle to whistle. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, I think it was Milt Stegall that said it on the TSN panel. It's like, if you want to fight the guy, if someone said something to you, fight the guy, ask him to fight after the game. But I mean, you don't do that. That's just a very, very bad look for the team. And just the reaction from Orlando Steinauer as well, who doesn't usually show a lot of emotion like that. Yeah, look at him right there. It's crazy. So I was very disgusted as a Tiger Cat fan and a fan of the CFL.
Yeah, my tweet was, when someone tells me they don't like the CFL, I thought that was funny. I just go up there, I just punk fake them and shove them. Yeah, I had the quote here from Steinhauer talking. I think Dunk had the story here where it was talking. Yeah, that's not who we are. I calls Chris Edwards faux handshake, post game shove on Oxymac inexcusable. Not good. I mean, I don't know. You get that in hockey a lot. You get when we're beating Arizona. You're up 4-1 or something, and they start getting chippy. You just don't see that. Football obviously moderates and handles that very differently than hockey, but that's certainly not something you can do. And it just doesn't set the tone good for the season here, especially. But excuse me, Montreal came in and kind of slapped you around at home. So
yep.
Looking any other notes here, we had Emery Hunt was checking out the game. That was good. Schultz, I had taken a lot of hits as well. It just felt like he was running, getting beat up, and they had the one scramble where they got tripped up and couldn't get through. But I don't know, just felt kind of like a shellacking overall here. Anything else from this game, or you wanted to move forward in your heart?
Yeah, so I think one thing with Schultz is I was noticing a lot of batted passes at the line. So I don't know if that's just a him thing or it's just that Montreal defensive line with a lot of length up front. Jamal Davis is a guy that's kind of compared to Willie Jefferson up there. So I think that, maybe that's something to watch going forward with him, something that I noticed a lot in this game. But yeah, I think that's just about it for me with this game. I think that just looking at my notes here, one thing I wanted to mention is Deontay Evans, another former Tiger Cat coming back to burn them here with I believe it was pick 6. I don't know which one went for pick. There was 2 interceptions. One of them went back for a touchdown. One of them went back for a long return. But yeah, Deontay Evans got one of them against his former team. Another Tiger Cat coming back to bite them.
I had this as well here. And then you didn't even get your drone show. You didn't even the big drone show they had planned, the weather and all that. I mean, of course, I guess you said the stadium was empty anyway, so they don't want to do that. But does that do anything for CFL fans? Like, oh, we get the drone show coming up after the home opener.
Well, I will stay for the next game to see it because I'm very interested as to what it would look like. But I don't think I don't think it's going to be a huge draw in my opinion. But they do like a families on the field kind of thing, and they even canceled that. And they were like, "All right, everybody just get out of here." Like everybody's leaving anyway. It was pouring rain right when everybody was leaving the building. The rain kind of held off most of the evening. Was kind of a light trickle, but. At the end of the game, it was kind of a symbolic how everybody's leaving the stadium and the rain just started pouring. So,
yeah, when we went to the Grey Cup there, we gambled poorly and we tried to get out because we had a flight early the next day, and we kind of ended up and we walked through industrial area for about a good hour there trying to get back to our Airbnb. So yeah, sometimes you probably know, obviously, you can navigate better than I can, but certainly kind of issues with that. All right, let's get here. This was an interesting game. Slow to start. What was it, like 6-3 at the half, or 6-9? What was it? Yeah, 6-3 at the half. Calgary, Saskatchewan at Calgary here. Danny Austin said that there was a lot of Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans there. He said he normally doesn't notice that. What did you make of this one? Calgary here dropping another.
Well, I mean, in terms of, it's weird how bad the first half was, but I think this was the best game so far this season that really picked up in the second half. Both quarterbacks made some nice plays and some not so nice plays, but at the end of the day, I think it was a very entertaining, classic CFL comeback at the end of the fourth quarter. When you thought Calgary was out of it, they came back from 10 points with like 6 minutes left. So honestly, I was very entertained with this one. I was, pretty impressed with how the quarterbacks played in the second half, with the exception of a couple of really, really boneheaded throws from Jake Maier, who we'll talk about more in a minute here.
Yeah, starting off, this was the first overtime game of the season, right? If I'm not mistaken. When the USFL game on Saturday went to overtime. A weekend of overtime games here, with the Pittsburgh Maulers kind of inching it out there. Harris, looks good, had the interception. Maier, I had him, or my note said early on, like Maier just looks off. I mean, I don't know. We talked last week, if it's the pressure now, we don't have Bo here. I kind of got to do it all on my own. What do you attribute Maier's kind of accuracy issues to?
I just think he's kind of overthinking it. I think, like I said in the group chat the other day, I think he looks like Dane Evans did last year. He kind of looks like a deer in the headlights. He's kind of succumbing to the pressure of being the number one guy for that team. And especially when you look at Calgary's history of great quarterbacks, he has a lot to live up to. And on top of that, all his receivers are getting injured as well. Very thin wide receiver group even going into this season, but now Malik Henry's on the shelf. Reggie Bagleton's on the 6 game. So, I mean, it does not look good for Calgary unless they can get some really, young players to step up here. A lot of their Canadian receivers are going to have to play really well for them. So I think Jake's just looked really off in terms of the accuracy, which I thought was his biggest calling card going into this year. I thought that was the biggest reason why he would succeed in the CFL. Not really a guy that's going to push the ball downfield a ton, but I thought he was going to be a guy that, executed with rhythm in the passing game and could, deliver a ball on target when he needed to. But just a lot of passes sailing high through the first 3 weeks of the season. He has lots of time to turn it around, and I think Calgary's going to give him the full 18 games to do it. But at the end of the day, it just does not look good so far this season for him. And for me personally, as a guy that was super high on him going into the season, I'm personally out on him now, just based on what I've seen. I just don't think I just think he's totally regressed from what I've seen previously the past couple of seasons.
It really felt like they were set up right. I have this tweet here pulled up. Ryan's one of our Calgary fans. There was like a wide open there, right at the beginning of the game. Maier kind of overthrowing. It feels overthinking. The Dane last year, like Dane was so in his head, and it was like he could never get out of it. Couldn't get out of the funk. If you're Calgary now, you really felt like we're set up for the next 5, 6, 7 years here. We don't have to worry. And now, obviously, Ticats got to figure out what they're doing. But it's like neither team's better off now. It feels like both of these teams, with Hamilton and Calgary. I just don't know how you can regress so far so quickly. It just feels like the floor has fallen out right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it also falls back on the offensive coaching. Dave Dickinson, obviously, he took over the GM responsibilities this offseason, and they had some controversial departures from this roster. Even, before training camp, the release of Derek Dennis, I think that was potentially huge for this team. I think that, the screen passes really drive me insane, and how often they're called within this offense. There's just nothing that's attempted more than 10 yards down the field. And it drives me nuts how many times we see like a 2nd and 8 and they throw a 5-yard crosser and it's tackled short of the stick. So, I mean, I think a lot of it falls back on coaching from Calgary. And we saw a lot of that last year when, Maier took over as the starter as well.
Well, and even someone like Derek Dennis, and I know that he's a little bit older, right, and kind of injury, obviously had the injuries last year. like that's someone that could be a locker room leader kind of guy. And I just think that that's underserved, especially in the CFL where like, but the salary cap is so low and like we can't deal with any of this stuff. Like I think having someone like him there kind of picking this up because right, Calgary beat the Red Blacks, which isn't really an accomplishment, I think, at this point, and we
Yeah.
can talk about them in the preview. So I just, Calgary has not looked good, even in winning. I mean, that game was a really ugly game. We had here, the Malik Henry tweeting out, ruptured his Achilles. It's going to be a long process. I know God wouldn't put me through anything I couldn't handle. Thank you for all the prayers. I mean, truly just devastating. I know we talked the injuries off the top as well for across the board on this team.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a killer injury for the Stampeders. I think that Malik Henry, one of the only true guys that could stretch the field for this team, a guy that could take a screen pass and go the distance with it. We saw him take a slant route, go the distance with it in this game. And honestly, I think not having him going forward is going to be such a detriment to this Calgary offense. I mean, they have been the epitome. I think Paul LaPolice said this on the post-game show, that they've been the epitome of next man up in the CFL for years. But at a certain point, how much longer can you create players out of nothing? And that's what they've been able to do for so many years. And I think another thing with, you say, losing a veteran player like Derek Dennis and other leaders that they had on this team this offseason, I think they're starting to lose that winning culture that they've had over the years. It's a long established winning culture there in Calgary, but they're slowly starting to lose those veteran pieces that were, part of that 2018, their last Grey Cup winning team. So something to keep in mind here with Calgary as they go forward in this slow start to the season.
Yeah, Mark Stevens, and I think they had a cool tweet out where they were, I think, now the longest tenured kind of duo, him and I can't remember the other gentleman that calls with Mark, but with Malik Henry out here, St. Peter's at a jam, Bagleton, Middlemost on 6, Philpott uncertain to return. I just, what do you do here at this point? Are you signing? Are you making trades? It feels like the CFL season is so long to have this many injuries right now, right? Because you kind of got to factor that attrition in across the 21 weeks. I don't really know what they're looking at going forward.
I mean, maybe they bring back Kamar Jordan, a veteran guy that's still out there on the market. Don't know what he's up to, but I think that they're probably going to look for the answers from within. I think Trey Odoms-Dukes is going to be a guy that gets a lot more targets in that offense. Already was playing a pretty big role, but I think he might be their number one targeted receiver going forward. Luther Kunavanu, a guy they're going to lean on a little bit more, has shown a lot of potential over the past couple of years. So they're going to need guys to step up, play bigger roles in this receiving core, at least until Bagleton gets back. Because Bagleton, I still believe, is a true number one receiver in the CFL, and I think he was showing that through the first couple of games, which is unfortunate why he got injured.
And then, did you have any hot takes on? I was watching a lot of this, the second half of the. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my thing froze there. We had like a weird. Like the guy caught, there was a fumble, but the interception. Did you track any of this with like the weird rules where the one guy had it and fumbled it out, the interception thing?
Are we talking about the kickoff here, or like the kickoff that like was batted out of bounds, but the guy came down out of bounds, so they ruled it?
Yeah,
Calgary bug. Yeah, honestly, I tweeted out. I was like, sometimes there's just rules in this league that are just very, very hard to explain to people. And I think that was what Dave Naylor was saying on our pregame show, kickoff show to the season. And I think that is so true with the CFL. They just need to dumb down the rule book a little bit. I have no idea what some of these rules even are, because some of these bizarre circumstances, like what, that was even a rule. Like I rarely ever have that happen when I'm watching like an NFL game or a college football game or whatever. So I think that just another example of, I think by the rule, they actually got that call right, I believe. But at the end of the day, I think it's just very confusing, and I didn't know that was a rule.
Last notes I had here, like they had kind of like a fan event before the game. I saw the Grey Cup trophy was there. They had it on the base, which is good. My name is actually on the base. I don't know if you were aware of that with the Grey Cup fan base. But in retrospect, I wanted to put Arash Madani's name on it, but they wouldn't let me. Like I had already sent it in, and then oh god, that would have been such a funny joke to do, but I couldn't. Like it was past the point of return at that point. But I thought that was good. The base was there because it doesn't always travel with the base, but kind of sad where you had the event here in Edmonton with the Damon Allen, right? Kind of giving him the kudos, Edmonton losing, and then obviously Calgary here losing as well, kind of having their fan event. They can't time these right.
Yeah, unfortunately, they can't all do it like BC's done it the last couple of years with those great home openers.
So let's get over here. Last game, the game last night. This was exciting. I watched every snap of this one as well. Here going and opposite, I had my dual screen because we were watching. We had the USFL Southern Division playoffs going up against Toronto Argos at Edmonton. What did you make of this one? I have a lot. I think we have a lot to talk about.
I think the Argos just look like the defending champs. Like they look really, really good out there. I think they have balance on the offensive side. I think Chad Kelly shows exactly what you would want to see from him. He's not perfect at this point, had a couple of picks in this one, but he made a lot of big plays, used his legs to extend plays, which is very valuable thing in the CFL when you can, send more players than your offensive line can block. I think very crucial to be able to get out of those situations. So I'm very impressed with Toronto's start to the season here. And I think AJ Ouellette looks like the breakout running back of the CFL this season. Just looks like an absolute beast. Would not want to meet that guy in a back alley. And I think that defensively, they look as advertised. I mean, they're going against Edmonton and they played against Hamilton's anemic offense last week. So we'll see what they do, after their second bye week next week. But at the end of the day, I think that, they're working. They're playing on Monday, but at the end of the day, I think that Toronto's looked very good, is what I'm saying.
I tweeted this out here. I said AJ Ouellette is my spirit animal here. This gentleman, we did the last week. We had the wrestling, the whatever he was doing, the spear on the guy with the helmet. This guy is a freak of nature. Went for the hat trick here, 3 rushing touchdowns. And what was crazy to me is because they talk about like how powerful he is, right? Oh, he's this big guy. He's walking into the end zone untouched. Like he's just, it doesn't even seem like a challenge. I'm like, how is Edmonton so bad here in terms of stopping this? Like it just not even a challenge, but I like this gentleman. He retweeted this. We're excited, but yeah, this is a pro AJ Ouellette podcast here, but I mean, this guy is a superstar. I think between Chad Kelly and him, I like having some of these notable faces here. We can have a discussion about that at some point. We had the Dave Naylor tweet this week, his article about, is Chad Kelly the most important CFL player right now? What did you make of that? And I'm sure you saw Dave's article because it went everywhere.
Well, I think in terms of like potentially growing the Argonauts, presence and footprint, I think he is absolutely the most important player in the CFL right now. If he hits, which it looks like he's gonna hit, I think that would be huge for that team, because the Argos, despite their really strong history winning the most Grey Cups and whatnot, they haven't really had a great franchise quarterback that's been there for like a long time. So I think that, they've had guys that have played there for a handful of years. Ricky Ray most recently won 2 Grey Cups there. But he's more known, I think, for his time in Edmonton. And a lot of the guys are like that. Damon Allen himself, known for more playing at other spots in the league. So I think Toronto needs that superstar franchise quarterback to be able to grow the fan base, be that marketing player for them. And if he doesn't get a shot in the NFL, that would be huge for them going forward, if he's able to stay long term and continue to play like he is right now.
Yeah, because here's my issue with Chad Kelly, and I did forget I had this funny one to pull up with the AJ Ouellette. Justin commented, AJ says, "I don't shave so I can conserve energy for touchdowns." I thought that was good with that. The thing with Chad is, I don't think Chad. Same with Nathan, but I think Nathan, to me, kind of had the heel turn after the season, where he, in his little, and it wasn't meant to be, but then kind of his post game after he got signed over in Jacksonville, like, never really wanted to be in the CFL. It was kind of an unwanted detour, and I'm kind of glad I'm in the NFL. That's what I've always wanted to do. To me, that was always kind of a Nathan Rourke heel turn. With this, I think Chad like openly is like, I want to be in the NFL. That's where I want to be. And I don't know if you have Chad for the long term. Even if Chad doesn't have prospects in the NFL, I think Chad thinks that he has prospects in the NFL. So I don't know, and I know he's pretty fresh. I think in the Naylor article, they're talking with injuries and him walking off teams and stuff. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body at his age, but Chad doesn't strike me as I'm going to be a lifer in the CFL.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a fair point, but I think he also mentioned that he's playing on a bleep contract. So I think that, if he gets, if he keeps playing like that, he's going to get, $500,000 a year, which is pretty good money. I think, like, you see guys come up here and, stay long in the CFL. So I mean, maybe doesn't stay long term in Toronto, but I think that at the end of the day, just getting the exposure of having a guy with his name attached to the Toronto Argonauts franchise is going to create a little bit of buzz around the team.
It's just so funny to me because there was rumors that they wanted to get Chad to go to the USFL last year, obviously with his uncle and everyone, Jim Kelly playing in that. And I don't think they offered enough, right? The USFL doesn't. XFL will pay up a little bit for some quarterbacks, but I think even this year there was like 200,000 was kind of the top for one of the guys in the XFL. And so to have Chad now, what could have been here, a year different or whatever, if the USFL had ponied up. And I think they really, how they've leaned into their lineage this year, the second year now that they're out of the trademark lawsuit stuff. I really think they could have let on Chad to kind of be a face of that franchise. And obviously they don't have that option now because he's with Toronto. So just interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if he ever does, when he has an opportunity to be a free agent. If the NFL doesn't work out, if he does join one of those leagues down south.
It's funny to me talking the Edmonton side here. If there was 32,000 people there last week for the home or 2 week, whatever it was for the home opener, like I think there was 32 people there last night. I know the reported attendance was, 20,000, whatever seats sold, but and that was I was surprised, like drastic drop off compared to the home opener.
Honestly, I wasn't totally shocked with it. I mean, just the way they lost that home opener after trying to rebuild some goodwill within the fan base over the offseason. I mean, at the end of the day, just win a damn game. Like that is the reality of this situation. They need to win games to get this fan base back. I mean, even if they do that, I mean, is it even beyond getting fans back? I think they need to have significant success probably for them to do that. But at the end of the day, not totally shocked with the poor attendance in Edmonton yesterday. It looks like there was nobody there, like you said.
Yeah, I could say USFL definitely had more fans yesterday. I know there's always the jokes with the USFL attendance. Yeah, Damon Allen in attendance, a bad night for that. We talked the Chad Kelly being the most important. It was so funny to me because they're doing the pregame. Okay, Cornelius and the Elks, and they really got to get going here. And like, what is this? Do or die for Cornelius? Comes out immediately, throws an interception, gets sacked, and it's like that's the end of the drive. Like it just you can't get going there. CJ Sims was good. I mean, that seemed really like the only spark of life they had for the Elks with any return games. I don't know. I don't know what to make here. I guess we can talk to Cornelius, Kyle Loxley coming in, getting one snap, and then we move on from him. And then we have this Derek Doji. How do you say that? Doggy.
Doogie? I have no idea. I'll have to hear it said more times.
Well, the good news is he is actually a friend of the Markcast. I didn't realize this. I was going on to tweet this. I was last night. I go, I gotta go. I was going, catching up on everything. I go, it's no wonder this guy's a baller. But he finally comes in at the end. We finally get Cornelius out. Do you feel like Cornelius's time, like we're on Jarrett's season now?
I think it's been beyond time to move on from Taylor Cornelius. I think what is he like 4-20 as a starter in the CFL? 0 home wins. At a certain point, you have to move on, especially when he hasn't shown any progression. It was a better game from him in this one, and it's worth noting that this game was close at halftime, 18-17. But the real killer, I think the turning point of the game, first drive for Toronto. Edmonton has an opportunity to stop them. They get a sack, Jake Serezna, but he gets flagged for, I think it was a face mask penalty. Toronto goes down and scores the touchdown, makes it a 2-possession game. And it was really it from that point. And it was a blowout from there. And honestly, this kind of reminds me of the Winnipeg-Hamilton game from the first game of the season where it looks, much closer than it actually was.
The Serezna thing, no, I remember that. And he came on the show last year. I think they were doing, they were honoring his family, or Edmonton was doing something. He came on the show. He's a great guy, and they said it wasn't even like, it was a face mask or like a horse collar, but they said it's more that Chad is such a big guy trying to pull him down. Like he wasn't trying to go for any penalty. It's like like Chad Kelly is a massive human being. Like I'm trying to pull him down, and just kind of. Maxer says it's Daggy. But yeah, just that any momentum they had, like you said, was gone there, and then Toronto goes up again. It felt like near the end of the game, I tweeted out because it was like that last drive. Okay, Edmonton's going to come in. They're going to get one more touchdown. The guy fumbles it into the end zone. The Argos, run it back, and then they return it again, and then Toronto gets it back. I tweeted out, I said, God must hate the Edmonton Elks. Like, I can't figure out any other way about it. It seems like they can't. It's unfathomable here how poor this team is.
Honestly, I'm not one to believe in curses or, I'm not an overly spiritual guy or anything like that. But at this point, it's getting very hard to deny that this is a cursed team. They haven't won a game in 4 years, right? At this point, I mean, a home game that is, but just it's hard to explain how bad they are in the most crucial moments of games. I feel like they fumble at the worst times. They give up big chunk runs at the worst time. This team just cannot stop the run whatsoever, and we saw that in this game again.
Yeah, I'm sure. That was like, you got to say the Edmonton Elks. I did think it was funny though. This tweet did make me laugh. CFL Super Late News. Tailgating the last time the Elks won a home game, and it's the disciples here with Jesus. I thought that was. But I mean, I want to be honest here, because I did tweet. This was kind of my real, hey, I want to do all this. We had the Edmonton Elks flag hangs, in the back here. This is my summer season. I do everything outside, but in the studio show, Edmonton Elks hangs there. It's too important of a franchise. I saw Bob Irving tweet out as well. A lot of people here like Edmonton. Like, we can't lose Edmonton here in the CFL. It's too important. Like, what do you make of this, just in terms of the legacy that Edmonton's had even before I even breathed the CFL anything, and now what they've come to?
It's really sad because I think it's happened over a relatively short amount of time, because I think in 2019, they really weren't that bad. They were in the East Final. They were a crossover team, and they lost to the Tiger Cats in the East Final. But I just could not have imagined how bad they were coming back from the canceled 2020 season. And I think that, I mean, it's not good for any team in the CFL for any of the teams to be bad for a continuous period of time, because usually attendance suffers. And I think a lot of the attendance is based on team performance for a lot of the teams around the league. I mean, sure, you have some, great fan bases like, Hamilton usually supported the team pretty good when the team was bad from, 2003 to 2008, I believe was that era. And I was saying that in the group chat that the Elks are starting to remind me of that era. The Tiger Cats, just a hopeless organization. And I just really feel for the fans out there that, they just need to win soon. And I just don't see it happening this year, honestly.
Like, even that where Cam Phillips caught the long ball and then thought he was touchdown and got the ball knocked out, but then he ended up recovering it. It was like the Edmonton, because that could have been a huge thing. Oh, Edmonton saves a touchdown here. Like, we're going back the other way. Like, he literally just let go of the ball and was able to recover his own. Like, it just felt like they could get absolutely nothing going. What I don't get is, in the Kyle Loxley, I think they said that maybe he got injured on that fumbled snap, and then that's why he wasn't put back in. Trey Ford wasn't dressed, right? That's why they went to Daggy. I can't figure out for the life of me why they don't like Trey Ford.
Yeah, it really kind of pissed me off how they handled this situation. And honestly, to his credit, Daggy, looked pretty good in the action that he did see, besides that one pick six. But at the end of the day, he kind of jumped the line. We didn't really, you got guys like Kyle Loxley and Trey Ford that have, worked their way up. They've paid their dues. Trey Ford is dressed as a wide receiver. Kyle Loxley is dressed as a wide receiver for this team. They've worked hard for that opportunity, and to be passed up in that moment for a guy that's never taken a CFL regular season snap before. I mean, it's very understandable why Kyle Loxley was upset, and I don't know why Trey Ford's not even dressed. Like, I mean, you'd think just having a Canadian backup quarterback wouldn't hurt the ratio or anything like that, right? So I mean, it's really hard to explain for me. And their management of like the short yardage situation, they always have these tiny quarterbacks running that. Like, I think Cornelius should be the one running that for the Elks, like, just naturally. But at the end of the day, I think Chris Jones has really, really mismanaged this quarterback situation in Edmonton. I think that's going to be his undoing.
Yeah, I can't imagine you sitting here and being happy with this moving on. And I think you're going to get disgruntled in this, like you said, with the quarterbacks. We had Trey on preseason because I'm like, if Cornelius goes down, Trey's got to be the guy. I mean, he played good last year. I know he got hurt. He won in the preseason this year, and that's why I mean, and all credit to Jared Nagy here. I mean, I'm glad that he's getting the opportunity. I don't understand that. I don't get how. It was Geno Lewis, right? They had the fumble in the end zone there with that. Any other thoughts? We had the like I talked Sims getting the kick returns. They said Edmonton hasn't had one return for a touchdown since 2015. Did I hear that correctly?
I didn't hear that stat, but that's pretty crazy if it's true, honestly. But Edmonton has had, a very, they're very much lacking in terms of the return game over the past couple of years, and their special teams in general is another thing that's been very poor for that team.
Well, let's get out of here at the hour. Any other thoughts on this game? Do you have any other notes? And then we can do just a super quick preview before we go on.
No, I think that's good for this game. I think we've beaten the Elks up enough.
I tell you, I mean, I love Dave and Morley Scott and Victor and everyone over there. I just, this is a conundrum right now. They need to figure out. Coming up here, Edmonton, potentially maybe a bounce back game going, in Ottawa. Ottawa isn't necessarily great at home. I had the tweet. We still don't know what's going on with Mazzoli. So I don't know. What do you make of kind of what is Ottawa's game plan here? I'm trying to pull up this tweet.
Well, I just saw before we went on here that Tyree Adams is going to be starting for Ottawa on Friday, so that's worth noting. So it's going to be probably Tyree Adams versus Jared Doogie, so or Daggy. So I'm going to get it down, but I think that that's going to be an interesting quarterback matchup. The Edmonton-Ottawa games have been very dreadful to watch over the past couple of years, so hopefully it's a somewhat entertaining game. At least it's a little bit fresh with the quarterback matchup there, but obviously looking forward to the other games a lot more.
Yeah, here we have coming up Saturday. Saturday is my birthday, Canada Day. Happy Canada Day, everyone on there. I'll have to watch this on delay on Sunday because we're going to the Mariner game and I got USFL championship. There's a lot of football I got to watch here. But Winnipeg are going into Montreal. This game is exciting now because Montreal actually looks good. I mean, I think if you had told me at the beginning of the season, I'm like, oh, Winnipeg's going to come in. Winnipeg coming off, obviously, their embarrassing home loss. What do you make of this one? I think this is actually intriguing.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how Winnipeg bounces back. I think that Montreal has looked very good against two backup quarterbacks to begin the year, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. Montreal's defense has looked really good to begin the year. I think that a lot of those guys were on the team last year that went into Winnipeg and upset them. Obviously, offense looks a lot different, so that'll be interesting to see how they match up against Winnipeg's defense. But as I mentioned before, Winnipeg's defense not looking like the same unit that we've seen the past couple of years.
Yeah, weird here. I don't know if they factor in the American holidays here. Just a weird 3-day, whatever, no Sunday game here. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, so I think because Canada Day lands on the weekend, the holiday is actually a Monday for here in Canada. Yeah.
There you go. That's what worked that. And then this is, the game of the week. You said you were going to try to get to this one. BC at Toronto. Mike Mitchell has said it could be the Grey Cup preview. Very excited for this one.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited. I think that the matchups on both sides of the ball, as I talked about earlier, should be very interesting. I think a guy that doesn't get enough credit for Toronto is Ryan Dinwiddie. I think he is actually a very, very good coach. I think a lot of people kind of underrate him because they've seen some scuffles on the sideline over his past couple of years, and he's kind of a younger guy, so people don't give him the credit. But I think in terms of offensive game planning, the Argonauts have been one of the most consistent offenses in the CFL over the past couple of years. And, for BC, I think that Rick Campbell's really, steadied the ship. And I think he's had a couple of his best coaching seasons here in BC over, when you look at his CFL coaching career in general. I think, he's looked very good over the past couple of years. So I think the coaches are something to note with this game. And I'm really excited for this matchup.
Yeah, I like Dinwiddie. We had him on kind of the CFL Media Day stuff here at the end of the last season. I thought he was great. I don't interview a lot of the head coaches, so it's just kind of cool getting to sit down and chat with him. And yeah, Rick's such a funny guy because he's very quiet in interviews, very not whatever. But then I see all these, and Matt Baker and Nick are posting all these post game. They're celebrating in the locker room, and Rick's screaming and running around. So I like that. I like seeing, kind of one of the boys there. And Rick strikes me as a tiny man as well here, running around in the locker room. So Rick's from over here in Spokane, so I certainly know all that with Eastern and all that. Jason, we appreciate it. This will be on Jason's channel as well. If you liked, I don't know if anyone even watched this on any of the other stuff, but trying to stream across kind of all the platforms today. Let me know if you like that. Pat and I will be back tomorrow to do the USFL playoffs recap. And then obviously next week, I said at the top, flip-flopping. Jason and I will be on the 4th talking CFL, and then Pat and I will be on the Monday show. Jason, anything else from you before we get out?
Not much for me. I think pretty good week in the CFL, the best one yet, in my opinion, and I'm excited for week 4.
Yeah, check. And then Jason does kind of like his week previews. Check that out. And then I do like your instant reaction kind of stuff as well. I think that's good. Kind of Hamilton, Rome is burning here. What's going on? So we appreciate that. I appreciate Jason, everyone watching. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.